Hello, everyone. My name is Edie Stringfellow, and I am the Director of Diversity and Inclusion with the Massachusetts Biotechnology Council. Thank you for joining us today for Makeshift Happen program, where we will discuss anything and everything related to equity, diversity, inclusion, and engagement. Before we get started, I would like to go over the ground rules with you. For the first 20 minutes or so, it will be a Q&A portion between me and the guest. And we will mute everyone's video and audio at this time, but please feel free to type in questions in the chat section. And then after that, the remaining 20 minutes, we will open up the video and audio for the audience to ask any questions for our guest. We want to make sure that the programming is interactive and engaging. There, we're going to wrap up the program around 2:40 Eastern Standard Time with a hard stop at 2:45 Eastern Standard Time. Now let's get started. As you know, for this month, November, MassBio salutes our life science colleagues that are service members in observation of November National Veterans and Military Family Month. Today, we will cover real-world experiences and leveraging acquired skill sets to meaningfully impact and support scientific discovery. And we also talk about transferable skills that can advance the mission to develop new therapeutics that address the significant unmet medical needs. Joining me for today's discussion is Sonya Tucker with Sanofi and Derek Herrera with MPV Vets. Sonya, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, thank you, Edie. First, let me say thank you for having me. I am currently employed with Sanofi Pharmaceuticals. I am a regional business leader for the South Central region in the general meds business, leading the diabetes team. And I am also a retired U.S. Army Reserves Major, Medical Service Corps Officer.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Sonya. Derek, if you please tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about background about MPV Vets too.
Yes, pleasure to be here with you all today, and thank you for hosting this amazing event, Edie. Sorry I was a few minutes late. My background, I was in the military, served for 8 years as a Marine Infantry and Special Operations Officer, and then have been an entrepreneur in the medical device industry for the past 5 years, and most recently got involved with MVP Vets. And MVP Vets is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that helps veterans find meaningful employment and purpose in the medical device and life science industry. And we do this by creating a network, providing content and instruction to veterans, and helping them connect the dots so that they can find employment and purpose after they've transitioned from active duty.
Well, thank you for enlightening us and educating us on MPV Vets. Sonya, back to you. Now we just had a recent signing for the employer support of Reservists and Guardsmen last week. Can you tell us a little bit about how Sanofi supports Reservists and Guardsmen?
Absolutely. So Sanofi strongly supports those serving in the military and has an outstanding military leave policy to ensure that any of our members who are called up to active duty continue to be supported from a pay and benefits perspective. Sanofi offers a cumulative 5 years for military leave.
Now, why do you think it's important for life science companies to support military veterans?
For a variety of reasons. So first is because veterans make excellent employees, managers, leaders. They are deeply rooted in mission, and so are life sciences companies. Veterans also bring a diversity of experience, dedication, and a strong commitment to reaching individual as well as organizational goals. Success in the military is highly dependent, I would say, on being a fast learner, being able to adapt quickly, and working in ambiguity and changing environments, which are very relevant attributes that are needed in the industry.
Well, as we talk about changing environments, let's pivot to Derek. Why should investors consider funding military betterpreneurs?
Good question. So as an entrepreneur, there's a very dynamic range of skill sets that are required. Certain days you'll be focusing on financial operations, other days engineering, product development, clinical studies, so many different areas and functional areas to focus on and be successful in. And I can't think of a better experience than having been a military service member or military officer operating in dynamic and uncertain environments and becoming, above all else, leaders and critical thinkers and problem solvers. And so for anyone who's considering funding these veteran-led organizations, I would strongly claim that, that this type of experience, although isn't industry experience, it's directly applicable and knowledge that can be transferred to this environment successfully.
Well, speaking of transferring to this industry, just tell us a little bit what inspired you to become an entrepreneur.
So what inspired me to become an entrepreneur was personal need. So I got injured while serving in Afghanistan in 2012 and sustained a spinal cord injury. And then as I came back, had a lot of challenges associated with my recovery. One of those was through bladder management and using catheters. And so as I did more and more research on a personal basis, understood that there was a huge opportunity and unmet need to solve this problem for so many people, just like myself. And as I was going through school and transitioning, I was evaluating what to do for my next career and found that this was what I needed to be doing because of the purpose and the impact associated with bringing a new medical device and new technology to market. And so that's what drove me to this industry, and that's why I've been working to make this a reality for the past 5 years.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. If you wouldn't also mind telling us, I'm so grateful for your recovery and that you're here, but what was some of the greatest obstacles that you faced as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, some of the biggest challenges I faced was just getting started, right? Building the momentum, creating the planning, and executing on that plan. And so it was a very steep learning curve and was very challenging. But over time, I was able to do that. And that's a direct result of the people that I met in industry who were willing to be advisors and mentors to help me learn and advise me along the way. And so couldn't have gotten to where we are today with our product, close to being on the market, without the support of so many people, in industry who are veterans and even more people who are not veterans who just wanted to help create the ecosystem for early stage innovation in the industry. And that was one of the things that was absolutely impactful for us, is just, having a warm, welcoming environment that is supportive of all these people who are willing to take risks and put it on the line and face failure every day.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And swinging back to Sonya, what would you say, let's build off of what Derek said, what was the value proposition of hiring a transitioning veterans into the life sciences industry?
So I would say for anybody, right, that's looking to hire a veteran into the industry, you are going to get someone that's going to be hardworking. You'll get someone who will always put the mission first. It is just one of those things where I would say that to never really underestimate a veteran, right? When we're problem solvers, we are a find a way, and we have a can-do mentality. While veterans don't check every box, we do bring intangible skills and that diverse and unique experience to the table that bring any industry value or any organization value. We just need the opportunity to be able to do so. So I would say to never overlook or underestimate a veteran.
Wow, and that was a lot that you went over, a lot of transferable skills. What would you say would be the strongest attributes of veterans?
So in addition to ones I shared previously and those that Derek mentioned, I would say communication and teamwork, integrity, leadership, a strong work ethic, problem-solving abilities, and working well under pressure. These are for me, the top attributes that come to mind when I think of veterans.
Can you, every company is different. Can you tell us some of the roles that are at Sanofi where veterans are in? People may have certain stereotypes, images, or biases of what they think veterans can do?
Sure. I am extremely proud of Sanofi. Sanofi, you know, for veterans hold many positions across a variety of our business functions, from entry-level positions to senior-level roles, to include sales, R&D, human resources, distribution and manufacturing. As an example, I would tell you that, so our executive sponsors, I am actually one of the co-leads for the North America Veterans Employee Resource Group. And we have two executive sponsors. One who is an Air Force veteran and also the head of North America for Human Resources, and the other who is an Army veteran, who is also the vice president and head of translational science and biomarkers. So two very different business functions within the organizations, two separate parts of the business. So I would tell you that for Sanofi, they've done an extremely good job in ensuring that veterans have opportunities at all levels. I myself am part of a senior leadership team. My boss, who is also a head of sales, is an Army veteran. So I can tell you that throughout the organization, veterans hold significant roles and important roles and contribute to the profitability and the success of the organization.
Well, you covered several people and several roles at Sanofi. Can you tell us a little bit about Sanofi's Veteran Employee Resource Group? If you could tell us what the mission is, how big it is, and how the company supports it.
Absolutely. So the Veterans ERG is over 500 members within the ERG, and the mission of the Vets ERG is really to provide and network resources and support for not only Sanofi veterans, but also members of military families. We also provide guidance and insight on the recruiting practices for veterans to ensure that we're considered for a variety of roles, as we just previously talked about, identifying transferable skills and guiding veterans to best job fits, providing mentoring for incoming and current veterans during time of transition and throughout their career, as well as creating internal networks and mobilizing our internal resources to rally around training for our incoming veterans. So as you can see, the Vet ERG plays an important role in our growth strategy within the organization.
That is amazing, because I just want to make sure that we got that out there. So companies who are thinking about starting veteran ERGs or have a number of veterans underneath their roof, this is how you can leverage some of those talents and skill sets. Is there anything else that Sanofi is doing to support veterans and their families that you haven't mentioned yet?
So I would say from a benefit standpoint, right? So Sanofi's benefits and resources not only help to support professional growth and development, but we also have amazing health and wellness benefits and resources for all employees, and of course for our veterans. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a great military leave policy to ensure employees have a peace of mind when they are called to active duty, whether it's short-term or long-term.
Well, let's pivot back to Derek to give Sonya a couple of seconds to breathe a little bit, because thank you for all that information that you're providing for us regarding what you and Sanofi are doing. And Derek, you chose to go entrepreneur and not into corporate. Is there anything that you would consider a do-over? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I don't know that I'd have anything that I would change. You know, the journey has taught me so much. But what I do advise entrepreneurs, you know, aspiring entrepreneurs now, especially ones without any experience, is to either work at another medical device startup to gain experience, or to work in industry for some period of time to get experience. Because I don't advise anybody. I can't in good faith or good conscience, knowing what I know now, having gone through it once, advise anybody to try to start a company without that type of basic experience and knowledge about the industry and how medical devices are brought to market. So that's probably the advice I'd have. And so I don't know that I would have changed it necessarily, but as I advise people now, that is something that I do suggest to them and strongly suggest that they consider.
Okay. And how did you go about developing a strategy to raise the capital needed to get you where you are right now?
The capital that we've raised thus far, we've been very successful with fundraising from angel investors, venture capitalists, small family offices, as well as federal grants from different sources like the NIH and the DoD. Initially, as I was learning, I didn't do much on the strategy side. We did what we like to call the shotgun strategy, which means that you shoot in a bunch of different directions and you try all the different things and see what works. And so we had tried a lot of different things, and some things came online quickly. Some things happened faster than others. It took us a long time actually to find and secure private investment. And so that took a lot longer than I would have anticipated. And so we've done everything from crowdfunding to grants to, to private investment, to incubators and accelerators. And so the incubators and accelerators were some of the earliest sources of funding, as well as crowdfunding, which were some of the best, early sources of funding that came in for us. And then it took a little bit longer for us to gain momentum and build progress to secure investment from angel investors and venture capitalists. And so knowing what I know now, the strategies that I would suggest is, creating the conditions for success that include, all of the essential elements, such as, the stage that the product needs to be at, the market opportunities, the story that you tell, and then obviously the secret of, creating a forcing function to get an investor to commit, because otherwise they're incentivized not to commit. So those are kind of the things that I've learned strategically over the past few years, and that we try to utilize now for all the fundraising that we do moving forward.
And how long has your company been around, or since was it inception?
So about 5 years. So started about 5 years ago, and we had, a lot of passion and a lot of energy and a napkin sketch for a good idea. And so since then, we've learned a ton, and we've been successful and turned this into a device that's been studied in multiple clinical studies across the US. And we're actually in the middle of our pivotal study now to get FDA and CE clearance for the device, which we hope to have in, 1 to 2 years, hopefully. And so that's been, the lineage of the company.
Wow. So what would you say is the best thing that has happened to your company this past year?
I think this past year has been a phenomenal year for us. And so personally and professionally, what I think about with dynamic and uncertain environments is that they create massive opportunities for growth and learning and efficiency. And so we were in the middle of revisiting usability studies. We had patients lined up at the end of March, right when the first wave of COVID started to take off and all of our clinics shut down here in the US. And that was scary. It was frightening. It was uncertain. But through that, we were able to survive. We're able to be more efficient. We're able to conserve our budget. We're able to keep all of our employees. We're able to figure out how to be successful and adapt to the new environment, to get back into the clinic, to complete a usability study and another study, which we completed this year, and to use that time to double down and become even more effective in an uncertain climate. So I think the situation with COVID could have been catastrophic for us, but I think the perspective and efficiencies that it provided for us moving forward will make this the best year, the turning point, hopefully, for our company this year moving forward if we're successful long term.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Derek. We wish your company all the luck, and if there's any way that we can assist with that, make sure you share your information and the ways that we can do so in the chat section. At this time, we're going to open up the audio and video of our attendees and our participants to give you and Sonya a couple of minute break. We're going to transition now to Carla Talanian, who is with the Massachusetts Biotechnology Education Foundation, and will update us on some of the things that she and her team are working on and how we can support veterans in the life sciences industry.
Thanks, Edie. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, so Edie had asked me to come and give just sort of a brief introduction to something that's really exciting. MassBio Ed will be launching not one, but two first ever registered apprenticeships for the life sciences starting next year. One of these apprenticeship programs will be in the field of biomanufacturing. So we'll be looking for new, basically a brand new crop of biomanufacturing talent to enter the industry. The other will be in the field is for clinical trial associates to come and help manage, well, not managing, but helping out with clinical trials. We have been working on these apprenticeship programs now for about a year and a half. They're almost ready to launch. We hope to start recruiting people early into 2021. And one of the groups that we have always intended to reach out to was returning military veterans. We know that veterans have immense transferable skills. They may not have a resume that looks ideal for either one of these positions, but we do know that there are many of them that would have the attitude and the aptitude to do this kind of work. And MassBiod is really dedicated to opening up opportunities in the life sciences for people, as well as helping just to grow the pool of talent for the industry. So there will be more information on that coming out, honestly, in the next few days. I believe our communications team has a big press release plan that's supposed to be going out tomorrow, and we can share that with you all. But also, if anybody is interested in learning more about recruiting people, specifically if you would like me to speak to groups of veterans or anything, I'd be more than happy to do that after the first of the year. And if anybody has any questions about that right now, I'd also be really happy to answer those questions here if time allows.
Well, Carla, we actually do have a question from Eddie Dunn.
The SkillBridge program. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that program.
Yeah, hey, Carla, Eddie Dunn. It's a terrific program. If you want to ping me on it later on, I'm more than happy to share that with you. It could be just very insightful things. I'm sure Derek is aware of the program himself. Yeah, I'm sure he's knee deep. Derek, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, but I'm sure we will after this. Sonya, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope things are well. But yeah, I will definitely provide that information for you. It could be insightful, or you could be so far down the road you may not need it, but it's something to take a look at. And I think it's something that's been a very hot trend in the military talent space for quite about 2 or 3 years now.
Well, Eddie, I just want to say thank you for jumping in and asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to have Eddie Dunn here. He is actually one of the best people in the world to know. He's a mentor. He's an inspiration to me. He's also brought Life Sciences Veterans Action Network to our industry and is doing great things. If you will just take a couple of minutes to tell us what Ellis Van is working on, your role, and how the life science industry companies can get involved, even if they don't have veteran ERGs.
Yeah, so thanks for giving me a couple of minutes today. Just really terrific opportunity. It's always one of those things you have to pay attention to, Edie, because she'll drop things on you really fast, and you gotta jump in there. So I'm always ready for you, Edie, always. So I'm always there for you. You know that. But really quickly, the Life Sciences Veteran Action Network is a number of big pharma companies coming together, and we're joining forces to affect 3 key areas: employment, homelessness, and suicide. Right? Those are 3 core areas of our work stream. What we're doing is we're joining forces to impact a local network area. In other words, these big pharma companies, all the veteran ERGs are coming together, joining forces, and affecting greater health outcomes and employment outcomes in a local area. As a matter of fact, Sonya is part of, Sanofi is part of the equation with being one of our partners. We have AbbVie, we have Quest, we have Vertex, and I'm leaving out one, and Sanofi, right? So those are other, and Biogen as well. So we've got some great heavy lifters in this. We just had a terrific event last week. Edie, you were a part of that. Had Bob Coughlin jump on board and talked about that. Actually, just to give credit where credit's due, the initial conversation came from Edie and one of the senior executive leaders over at Vertex. That's where this whole thing started. It was and I was there, I was the witness, Edie, because when that conversation took place, it took off from there, and I've been helping to facilitate the growth of this network since the inception. So we've had a full year under our belt. We've started some very terrific campaigns on the homelessness and the veteran suicide. We're partnering with some great folks, and we're starting to grow. So 2021 is a terrific opportunity for us. If there are others who would like to know more about that, Derek, I would love to connect with you. You know, what you spoke about being a veteran entrepreneur myself, I've got my own practice. I've been doing that for the longest time. Would love to catch up and pick your brain on a couple of things. But that's a little bit about who we are on the LS Van side.
Well, Eddie, I'm going to swing back to Sonya and Derek in a second, but if you would be so kind to enter your contact information or a web link or something where we can look up, people can reach out to you directly for more information.
I'll do that. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you, Eddie. Now, going back to Sonya and Derek, we do have a question. And anyone else who has military background who is on the call right now, please feel free to jump in and give us your idea and insight. What types of challenges may veterans transitioning to industry expect, and what can organizations do to help them adapt? Sonya.
All right. You know, so I think it varies, right, on the experience that you have, but I think that the one key area of focus is transitioning and taking those skills, right, that you have learned from the military and really having them transfer to your current role. I think it's really important. I also think that at times, you know, veterans do a great job of working independently as well as in teams. But we have an opportunity, I think, to take on and lead from the front more so. So leveraging those leadership skills and making sure that you leverage those transferable skills. While it may not be a one-to-one, typically experiences that veterans have, especially coming from that the medical side of things, and whether it's medical service corps, whether it's, you know, AMED, it is an opportunity really to take and leverage those skills in the life sciences organizations.
Well, thank you, Sonya. Derek, would you also like to add to your thoughts on it?
Yeah, we're very intimately familiar with a lot of the challenges, and we've heard pretty consistent things from the majority of veterans that we support. And we've tried to tailor the entire program that we offer at MVP Vets to help address some of these needs. And so the biggest challenges initially is really just trying to figure out what they want to do, mapping that with their skills, like Sonya said, and ensuring that they can communicate that in a meaningful way. Looking for, so basically the way we break down our process is to have them look internally to identify these things using skills assessments and, and having conversations with their families and creating the constraints for meaningful jobs and purpose and employment within the industry. Then we have them look externally, because they don't have knowledge of the industry. They don't have knowledge of the companies and everything else. So while they're in the military and they're getting new assignments, they're pretty well aware of the units that they'll be going to and the reputations that those units have, but they don't know that because it's a new industry. So we have them research companies through informational interviews, site visits, secondary research online, and cold messaging people on LinkedIn to network and learn about what people say about the place that they work. And then lastly, obviously, the application process can be very daunting, but we're there to support them throughout the entire process. And so we kind of break it down to those three steps of, looking internally, externally, and then, supporting them through an application process. But the way it feels can be, daunting, right? It can be overwhelming at times because coming out of the military, whether it's been 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you've never really had to interview for a job. You've never really had to worry about having a job or not having a job. You've never had so many choices presented to you where you can do anything you want. And so it's very daunting and sometimes overwhelming, and getting over that's a big challenge. And so we try to structure this way, and we try to structure our program in a formal way so that we can help them just take small steps to create a job search plan and land jobs that they're interested in, that they'll be successful at for the long period of time. But those are some of the challenges that that we continue to see on a daily basis with all the veterans that we work with.
Thank you, Derek. If you wouldn't mind expanding on that, because we have a question from Susan. Susan, go ahead.
Oh, hi everyone. Thank you. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the MVP Vet and what it's like
Definitely.
to kind of partner with them.
Yeah, so MVP Vets was formed, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. It was formed about 8 years ago. I recently have been involved as a board member and now as the chairman of the board of directors for the organization. We have a massive well of support within the medical device industry because some of the people that started it years ago are successful veterans in the medical device industry. So we have almost every major company that we've partnered with in the medical device side, but we've now begun to kind of pursue a targeted outreach to life science and biotech as well. And we have a very simple product that we provide to both veterans and to partner companies. For veterans, we offer them free services, services free of charge. They can sign up and either go through a formal program to help them in a cohort, go through this process of creating this job search plan and applying to jobs as they're transitioning from the service, or they can do that informally with mentors one-on-one. And so, we connect them within the network that we have with resources and people at companies that they can talk to learn about before finding, and applying and finding a job that they want. And then on the partner company side, the things that we offer to them is, we just support companies as they work through this process and as a part of whether it's HR or through the Veterans ERG or anybody within the organization. We make it very simple for anyone to come sign up as a mentor. And what we do is we create this network of people at companies so that we can fulfill, one of the biggest challenges, we can overcome one of the biggest challenges for these veterans, which is a lack of a network. And so, if we get an inbound request from someone who's in Atlanta, Georgia, and says they want to go into sales, but they want to stay in this region, but they just want to be in sales, we can work with them and we can pull up our list through our spreadsheet and see, based upon the level of expertise you have, we know people at, 5 major companies in medical devices and 2 major companies in the biotech and life science side that we can connect you with and make this warm connection so you can learn more about the industry. You can get, build a relationship with these mentors and learn about those companies. And so long story short, what we offer to the companies is we just offer access to a network that helps them expand their message and their presence in places to find candidates that they may not otherwise reach. And so it's creating this, we've been trying to lay the foundation to create this virtuous cycle of helping companies find very talented and exceptional individuals that they would overlook and then, improve their diversity at their companies. And helping veterans find jobs and employment, which can help prevent, things like suicide, homelessness, and all these other challenges with transition as well.
Well, speaking about transitioning, Jeff Gallo, if you wouldn't mind, you're one of the people that I work with very closely, have learned a lot about military and how you can contribute to the industry. If you would please tell us about how you transition and your journey.
Yeah, first off, thanks for the invitation, and Derek, Sonya, and everybody. Commend you on your service. I'm a retired Marine. I got off active duty in 1990, and then sustained a reserve career, all with AstraZeneca. I've been with AstraZeneca for 25 years, and helped write originally their charter for the military resource group. And I've heard a lot of things that we're doing that you have outlined here. I've also learned a couple of between Derek, Sonya, and Eddie about resources that I might be able to take advantage of. I went the path of, I'm up here in New Hampshire, and our company is headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware, Gaithersburg, Maryland, but we have a huge presence here in Massachusetts in Waltham at our research facility. So when I'm part of the core team that's been implementing and supporting our military resource group for AstraZeneca, and at one point, I think even during Iraqi freedom, we had probably 90 people activated at one time. So I've tried to be assisted, assist those, even that we're out here in the field, but we're corporate based back in Wilmington. So we have executive sponsors and whatnot that help back there. So I'm always took the road of being in the field. A lot of these inherent capabilities that I think that I learned that I had and also learned from the Marine Corps is that it's just helped me be a self-starter out here in the field. And now I run a region for government affairs. So less about the structured, it's more about delegation without authority for my career, and I think the military's helped me do that. So I've learned about some resources here. I've taken some notes about your program, Derek. Sonya, some nice pointers for your company, and then Eddie, just to see if I can maybe bring in, even regionally, our folks here because we have about 500 people that live and work in Massachusetts as well. So maybe I can help them with some of the resources that have been exposed here on this call. So thanks for having me, and willing to chat with anybody either now or certainly afterwards. Edie, thanks.
Oh, thank you. And we're actually at 2:40. We have 2 questions left. We're going to try to get them both in, but in the interim, we want to make sure you get into the chat section, Derek contact information and a link for MPV vets. Also, Eddie, your contact information and a link for LS Band if possible. Carla, your contact information and a link for the upcoming program or the announcement where they can check to find out that information. And then I see Derek has Eddie has added in the information for the DoD Skill Bridge. The question that we have for Sonya, what is something that the biopharma community should be doing but isn't right now to support veterans?
So it's a really good question, and I would have to say, honestly, based off of just my experience with my career, and which has been with Sanofi, I can't say that there is something that the bio industry isn't doing, but I would encourage, as I said earlier, for the bio industry to not underestimate the veterans, right? So, you've got critical thinkers, you have trained leaders, you've got those that have entrepreneurial spirit and that work ethic that you just really, cannot overlook. It is, those intangible skills not only bring value, but they lead to, different ways of working, they help improve processes, streamline and to shorten timelines. So I would say that to engage and to use these organizations out here, such as MVP Vets or others that, Ellis Van, I would say that's, definitely an opportunity to connect and to make sure that you're using all the resources possible so that when you are going through that, that hiring and that recruiting phase and you're looking for top talent, that you are being inclusive and diverse of the talent that's available. And so veterans should be a critical part of that.
Edie, could I build on that just for a second, if I'm allowed?
Absolutely.
So just to build on Sonya's point, one of the things that I'm seeing trending, it's with all the clients I'm working with, I'm working particularly in the healthcare industry specifically, and a lot of it has to do with employer unconscious bias. And this is something that's very specific to most of your D&I strategies that are out there now. A lot of it has to do, and it's extremely applicable right now, especially to veterans. A lot of times what happens is that we think about D&I from the perspective of people of color, certain races, ethnicities, but a lot of times what you'll find is people will not think of D&I in the context of veterans, and sometimes it falls a little bit further down the food chain. 3 core areas to keep in mind and something to think about. To Sonya's point, we can always say how great we are as veterans and be able to sell that, but until a company actually believes it and takes a tangible material approach, strategic approach to affect their culture, to be able to turn it a certain way, because you're going to get things around the idea of the aspect of post-traumatic stress. There's still fear around that. Employers may be reluctant. There's an education bias. Well, he's not smart enough to do my job. So, he was in infantry, he was in special operations. What could they possibly know about doing my job? And the third one, which hits a little bit closer to home, is the idea that as a recruiter, sometimes they'll look at a transitioning service member and not understand what they're looking at times, because the translation of skills requires the extra effort, and that extra effort with the ungodly pressure from business puts them in a very difficult position. So those type of 3 things are alive and well. Job descriptions, things of that nature. There are a lot of material, tangible things that are going on in the space right now that I think are material, that can actually affect culture. So I wanted to add that to the mix, if that helps.
You know, it's just, if I could, Edie, if it's,
Sure.
if you have time. So I would just say to Eddie, those are great points. And I would say where Sanofi has done a great job, and maybe it's because we have leaders, right, that are veterans leading our organization. Not sure. I mean,
that's right.
Our head of North America, Sanofi Genzyme, is an Army veteran. You know, our head of North America Human Resources is a Air Force veteran. So I'm not sure if it's because of that, but I can tell you that from an ERG standpoint, this year our focus was PTSD awareness, right? And we built off of that throughout the entire year, and ended our Veterans Day program focused on invisible wounds and PTSD and PTSD in the workplace, and how do you help support, and how do you identify when someone needs help, whether they ask or not. And I would say one of the other things I'm proud of that Sanofi has is we have a military crosswalk page, right, which takes where you can put in your AOC or MOS, and it takes those skills and it translates them to jobs within our organization that are matched. So those transferable skills are being identified. So I do think it's critically important that one, research the organization, right, to make sure that it is one that you want to be a part of as a veteran, and that they support veterans. I would say that, the life science industry is doing a better job and continuing to build upon that. But I'm not sure that we're all at the same point. And I will say that from where I'm at, Sanofi has done a better job of doing that.
Yeah. Ooh, Major Tucker.
And Zach, do we have a couple of minutes that we can go over?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Because I don't know how everyone out here feels about it, but one thing I noticed here in New England versus when I was in the South and versus when I was out West was regional bias. You don't have a lot of military presence in the Northeast compared to in the South. And then when I was out in Southern Cal, it's bases everywhere. San Diego, I mean, the presence is just huge. So it was not out of the ordinary or for anyone but a veteran background to apply for any job. So I think we also have to address, and I cannot speak, Jeff, maybe you can speak to it more because you're here in New England and maybe other people on the call, but I think that we also have to address the regional issue too on how veterans are perceived in New England.
Yeah, this is Derek. I would agree 100%, especially on the entrepreneurship side as well. It was kind of, it was interesting to see as I was, building a network in Silicon Valley. It's good and bad, I think, in some respects, but most of the people that I met there either didn't include veteran service or just did not mention that, or they didn't lead, it was something that would come out very, very late in conversation. And so, the good part of that, I thought, was that people there are judging you on your merits and not on, any titles or different things in that regard. But at the same time, it sometimes felt almost a little bit threatening, or not hostile, but like just it was a little bit, I felt a little bit, like that it was unfortunate that, people who've done something that's generally honorable and serve the country is something that's not, the conditions are not set that people feel comfortable sharing that, right? And so that was very interesting. And to your point, I think the regional bias is absolutely, something that should be addressed, and hope we can work to do.
If I can just build on Derek's point too, because in Edie, your point's actually very specific. So my practice, my talent practice is a horizontal. I don't work in a very specific industry vertical. I've worked in banking, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in healthcare, and I cut across several industry verticals. And what I'm seeing very specifically is that there's industry bias too, because as you know, if you're in the pharma biotech industry for many years, so my background, I've got 14, 15 years in pharma. So I've been in this business, and I know a lot of people at Sanofi and AZ, by the way. And so because I was at Novartis for many years. And so very specifically, there's an education bias in the industry, because if you have a PhD by your name, that's a very big deal. So there's that education bias. So there's a lot of that going on, but specifically to the regional, the states that do not have active military bases will look at the National Guard, and that there's a bias in the National Guard and Reserves too, because of multiple deployments. And that's very difficult for employers. And they do, and it's an area of concern for me, because although we have ESGR, Employment Supported the Guard and Reserve, there's still a lot of work to build on that, to be able to build that level of deeper commitment. And I don't think it's there yet, but to your point, Edie, there's plenty to do around this particular area.
Well, we unpacked a lot. I think we just have to schedule another conversation around this. I'd like to say thank you everyone for joining us. I also like to thank especially Derek and Sonya, our guests and featured speakers. And also I'd like to thank our guest future speakers that jumped in, Eddie, Carla, Jeff, Susan, and everyone here. Thank you for participating and attending. And again, check out the chat section before we close it out to get everyone's contact information. And don't hesitate to reach out to me to put you in connect with anyone else. And last but not least, if I don't see you sooner, I look forward to seeing you this Wednesday, November 18th, at the MassBio Champions for Biotechnology Education Virtual Awards Reception. And for all of our upcoming events, please visit massbio.org/events and have a great afternoon.